Level 1. The Targeted Academic. You are 26, you are a PhD candidate in foreign policy at Georgetown, fluent in Mandarin and Urdu, and drowning in student debt. Your thesis on asymmetric containment in the Taiwan Strait is brilliant, but it's a career dead end. You spend your nights drinking cheap coffee, watching the headlights of DC, traffic, and wondering when your life is going to start. A professor you've never seen before sits next to you in the library. He doesn't look at your book. He looks at you. He says, "Your analysis of the 1996 crisis was flawed. You focused on the missiles. You missed the banking sector." You look up, ready to argue, but he hands you a plain business card. No name, just a number and a location in McLean. "You have talent," he says. "We can give you the data your thesis is missing. If you're willing to sign a document that officially doesn't exist, you have just been profiled, targeted, and pitched. You think this is the break you've prayed for. You don't realize it's the bait." Level 2. The Recruit. The Farm, McLean, Virginia. You've signed the non-disclosure agreement, NDA. You've passed the polygraph that asks about your sexual history, your gambling debts, and your loyalty. You've been erased from Georgetown. Now you are Subject Bravo. You are moved to a facility the world calls the Farm. It is a world of permanent paranoia. Your classmates are former Olympians, mathematicians, and linguists, and you are all competing to see who can shed their humanity the fastest. The training isn't just physical. They put you in a room with a stranger and tell you to manipulate them into giving up their mother's name. They put you through a mock interrogation where you are kept awake for 72 hours and fed watery gruel. When you break, they show you the tape and tell you why you broke. They aren't trying to make you strong. They are trying to break you so they can rebuild you with one single purpose: obedience. The person you were is dying here, replaced by a utility. Level 3. The Case Officer, NOC status. You are 31. You are no longer Subject Bravo. You are a no-C, non-official cover. You aren't at an embassy, and you have no diplomatic immunity. To the world, you are a consultant for a construction firm in Kuala Lumpur. Your passport says Michael Chen, born in Seattle. You speak Mandarin with a perfect local accent. Your job is human asset recruitment. You spend your nights in a bar, drinking tea and listening to the local chief of police complain about his wife, his salary, and the gift he didn't receive from the Chinese embassy. He doesn't know who you really are. He thinks you're a good friend. You listen. You build rapport. Then you make the pitch. You offer him a consulting fee, 10 times his salary, in exchange for a weekly summary of police reports. He takes the money. You realize the game is just a transaction. You aren't selling freedom or democracy. You are buying silence and secrets. You look at your friend and realize you just destroyed his life to save your career. Level 4, the handler, your asset, the chief of police, delivers the reports. You transmit them through a dead drop in a digital locker, but the intelligence you're getting is too valuable. A rival agency, maybe the Ministry of State Security, MSS, notices. Your asset calls you in a panic. They are asking questions. They've ordered his bank account. He wants out. He wants asylum. You are 33. This is your first critical decision. You have to decide, do you try to extract him, a high-risk operation that could compromise your entire station, or do you cut the asset? You receive an encrypted message. Asset is compromised. Minimize risk to source and method. You meet the chief one last time in a crowded park. He is shaking, his eyes darting. He begs you for a passport. You give him an envelope of cash and a map of a safe route. You tell him a car is waiting. It is a lie. The route leads directly to a pre-arranged MSS checkpoint. You look at the man who trusted you and tell him, "Good luck, my friend." You have just been promoted to handler, and your first act of leadership is the absolute betrayal of a friend. Level 5, the station chief, the king of the hill. You are 42. You no longer walk the streets of foreign capitals with a wire taped to your chest. You sit in a soundproof room, a skiff, in a Middle Eastern embassy. You are the station chief. To the ambassador, you are a political attaché. To the local intelligence service, you are the man who decides which of their enemies live and which die. You manage a stable of 30 assets. You don't know their names, only their cryptonyms: GHOST, 1, Cobalt Trap Silver Vine. Your job is stability operations. This is a polite way of saying you bribe the local generals to keep the oil flowing and the protesters quiet. You realize that democracy is a word you use in press releases, but control is the only language you speak in the skiff. You've authorized enhanced interrogations in black sites you'll never visit. You see the photos, you sign the memos, you go home and eat dinner with your wife who thinks you coordinate foreign aid projects. You are living a double life within a double life. Level 6, the Special Activities Liaison. You are 47. You've moved from the analysis side to the SAD, Special Activities Center. You are the bridge between the suits in Langley and the ground branch, the paramilitary operators who do the work the Pentagon isn't allowed to touch. You don't use traditional soldiers, you use contractors and proxies. You are tasked with a regime change operation in a small, resource-rich nation. You don't send in tanks. You send in suitcases of cash to the opposition leaders and advisors to train the local rebels. You orchestrate a cyber-sabotage on the national power grid to spark civil unrest. You watch the satellite feeds as the capital city burns. You aren't a soldier. You are a force multiplier. You realize that you can topple a government from a laptop in Virginia without firing a single shot. You are the invisible architect of a nation's collapse. Level 7, the Senior Intelligence Service, SIS. You are 52. You are now part of the elite. You have a reserved parking spot at Langley and a security clearance that is above top secret. You are a member of the SIS. You don't handle operations anymore. You handle policy. You sit in meetings at the White House, briefing the National Security Council. You see the big picture. You realize that the war on terror or the Cold War were just branding exercises. The real game is total information dominance. You oversee the mass surveillance programs that intercept every text, every email, and every phone call on the planet. You aren't looking for terrorists. You are looking for leverage. You realize that the most powerful weapon in the world isn't a nuclear missile. It's a recording of a world leader's private conversation. You are no longer an agent of a country. You are an agent of the deep state, a permanent bureaucracy that survives every election. Level 8, the executive, the director's inner circle. You are 58. You are one of the 7 floors. You are a deputy director. You have reached the level of total deniability. You are the one who authorizes the wet work, the targeted eliminations that will never appear on a balance sheet. You don't use the word assassination. You use the word kinetic solution. You meet with the CEOs of the world's largest tech companies and defense contractors. You realize that the CIA isn't just a government agency, it's the venture capital wing of the American empire. You fund the startups that build the facial recognition software. You seed the social media platforms that influence global opinion. You realize that you are one of the 20 people who actually run the world. You look in the mirror and realize you haven't told the truth to anyone, including yourself. In 30 years, you are a ghost in the highest office of the land. Level 9, the Oversight Committee. You are 62, you sit in a wood-paneled room in the Rayburn House office building. The cameras are off, but the tension is electric. You're being questioned by a Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. They have a leaked document, a memo you signed 10 years ago authorizing the extraordinary rendition of a foreign national who turned out to be a dual citizen. You realize the game has shifted. The politicians who once begged you for results are now looking for a villain to feed to the evening news. You use the language you were taught at the farm. I cannot recall. State secrets privilege. National security implications. You watch the chairman's face. He knows you're lying. You know he knows. But you also know that if you go down, you're taking his campaign donors with you. You are no longer protecting the country. You are protecting the institution. Level 10, the burn notice. The hearing doesn't break you, but it makes you radioactive. You arrive at Langley on a Tuesday morning, and your badge doesn't work. The turnstile stays red. A junior officer, a kid who wasn't even born when you were recruiting assets in Kuala Lumpur, meets you at the gate. He doesn't look you in the eye. He hands you a cardboard box. Administrative leave, sir. Pending internal review. You've been burned. Not by an enemy agency, but by your own floor. You realize that deniability works both ways. You were the shield for the 7th floor. and now the shield is being discarded. You go home to your house in Great Falls, a house filled with encrypted servers and trophies from a dozen wars, and you realize the phone has stopped ringing. You are a retired legend to the world, but to the agency, you are a liability. Level 11, the private contractor. You don't stay retired. Men like you don't play golf. You're approached by a private intelligence firm based in Abu Dhabi. They don't call it spying. They call it strategic risk mitigation. Your salary is 4 times what the government paid you. Your clients are multinational corporations and royal families. You are doing the same work, toppling labor unions, hacking competitors, neutralizing activists, but now there are no committees, no oversight, no medals. You realize that the CIA was just the training ground for the real shadow war, the war of global capital. You are a mercenary of the mind. You spend your nights in 5-star hotels, drinking 30-year-old scotch, watching the same cities you once stabilized fall apart under the weight of the corporate interests you now serve. You are a ghost for hire. Level 12, the target of interest. It's a rainy night in London. You're walking back to your flat when you notice a car. A grey sedan 2 blocks back, lights off. You take a shortcut through an alley. You see a man at the other end. He's wearing a windbreaker and a baseball cap. He's holding a phone in a way that suggests he's filming you. Your training kicks in. You check your 6. You realize you aren't the hunter anymore. You are the target. The agency has decided that your private work is a threat to current operations, or maybe they just want to close the loop on the 2008 memo. You realize that in the world of Black Ops, there is no retirement. There is only active and inactive. You reach for the concealed carry at your hip and realize that the kid in the baseball cap was trained by the same instructors who taught you. You are 65 years old, and you are finally facing the only enemy you could never defeat. The system you built. Level 13, the ghost in the machine. You are 68. You have moved to a villa in a country that doesn't have an extradition treaty with the United States. You have 3 different passports in a floor safe, and your retirement fund is scattered across a dozen offshore accounts. You spend your day sitting on a terrace, watching the tide, and waiting for the digital tap to run dry. You still have your access. You have a laptop with a back door into the agency's archive that you planted 20 years ago. You watch the new generation, the kids who think intelligence is just an algorithm, make the same mistakes you made. You see a station chief in Eastern Europe using a propaganda bot that you designed in the 90s. You realize that the shadow war isn't a war of ideas, it's a war of inheritance. You are the grandfather of the dark, watching your grandchildren set the world on fire with the matches you gave them. Level 14, the asset recovery. One afternoon, a man sits at the table next to yours at a seaside cafe. He isn't wearing a windbreaker or a baseball cap. He's wearing a tailored linen suit and a Patek Philippe watch. He looks like a billionaire. He looks like you 30 years ago. He doesn't reach for a weapon. He reaches for a tablet. He shows you a photograph of your daughter, the one you haven't seen since the burn notice, walking her dog in a park in Virginia. The agency has a cold case file, he says, a missing ledger from the 2008 rendition. We think you have it. We'd like to negotiate a trade. You realize the system never forgets a debt. You aren't a target for assassination. You are a resource to be harvested. They don't want your life. They want your data. You have become the very thing you spent your career recruiting, an asset with a price tag. Level 15, the final safe house. You agree to the trade, not because you want the money, but because you want to see your daughter one last time. You are flown to a neutral site, a private estate in the Swiss Alps. You are met by the executive who replaced you. He's cold, efficient, and entirely devoid of the old-school morality you once pretended to have. You hand over the encrypted drive. You give him the codes to the archive. You watch as he uploads the data into the deep state cloud. You realize that you've just handed the keys to the kingdom to a man who doesn't even know why the kingdom exists. He looks at you and says, "Thank you for your service, sir. You're officially off the books." You are taken to a room with a view of the mountains. You realize this isn't a safe house. It's a cemetery with 5-star service. You are the final witness to a century of secrets, and the only way to keep those secrets is to keep you in the vault. Level 16. The Extraction. It's 3 a.m. You hear the soft thud of a helicopter on the helipad. You aren't afraid. You've been waiting for this since the day you met the professor in the Georgetown library. You walk out to the pad. The man in the linen suit is there. He doesn't have a weapon. He has a medical kit. It's time for the final extraction, sir. A clean break, no pain, no legacy. You look at the executive and realize that the CIA isn't a government agency. It's a venture capital firm for the human soul. You've been optimized, deployed, utilized, and now you are being liquidated. You take the injection. You feel the coldness spread through your veins. You look at the stars and realize that for the first time in 40 years, you are deniable. You are no longer a ghost or an asset or a titan. You are just a man disappearing into the dark, exactly as you were trained to do. The mission is over. The network remains.